I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and welcome to Omni at the Movies. Or rather, Omni had the good sense to pre-order something this time, and it arrived early. This time I am speaking of a documentary, a small-town monsters documentary entitled Howl of the Rougarou. Sorry, that's Skinwalker Howl of the Rougarou. I'm still getting used to that. Yeah, when this was first announced, the title was simply The Howl of the Rougarou. And then, like, a couple weeks ago, without any real explanation that I've seen, Skinwalker was added to the beginning. I have no clue why, because this documentary has nothing to do with skinwalkers. Best I can guess, skinwalkers have kind of been in the media as of late. There have been a lot of viral videos and reported sightings around them. Skinwalker Ranch has been really big recently with the documentary Hunt for the Skinwalker and the History Channel's Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. So maybe it's trying to piggyback on that. I have no idea. To me, though, this is always going to be Howl of the Rougarou, and that's the title they use when you actually watch the thing. The title sequence doesn't have Skinwalker in it. That's how late of an addition this was. But anyway, enough about that. I just felt like I should review the documentary itself because I gave a little shout out to Small Town Monsters in a recent video about my top paranormal documentary recommendations, and all of their stuff was #1 because I felt like they do a really good job of cataloging these things. I recommend you go watch the video, but the basic idea is that Small Town Monsters goes to different regions all around the United States and focuses in on a particular creature. A creature which, of course, has been purported to be sighted in real life, but which has become entrenched in that particular region's folklore. And it takes a neutral approach. It's not trying to really say one way or the other what these things could be. The main interest is in just cataloging these stories from the people who actually experience them. So whether you look at this as actual evidence of the paranormal or just contemporary folklore, they are fascinating to watch. Also, I have a character in one of my books named Lougarou, who is a werewolf, and the name similarity I'm sure is not lost on many of you. So I do have a bit more of a reason to do that. By the way, go check out that book and all the others if you feel like it. Anyway, onto the documentary. In terms of technical production, it's pretty interesting. It still follows the typical formula that Small Town Monsters goes with. They do have a particular way they structure their documentaries. It's a formula, it works, they're not going to break it anytime soon. But something that Small Town Monsters always does that, again, I feel really ups their quality, is that each documentary film has a different visual style of some sort applied to it. It can be anything really, like from having a shifting timeline in their 2 Mothman documentaries, to a sequence that's styled like a 50s newsreel in Terror in the Skies, to having roughly half of Momo the Missouri Monster be styled like a lost Squatchploitation film. So that one's sort of a docudrama in a way. With Howl of the Rougarou, the style they adopt is more found footage inspired. So like, the reenactments here are, what if the people who were the eyewitnesses had cameras on them? They did not, unfortunately, but if they did have cameras on them at the time, this is what it would look like, this is what they might have captured. That's a stark contrast to what they usually do, which is do animated reenactments with a very distinct visual style, and I'm a big fan of those animated sequences. But since they're going for found footage here, they go with practical effects, particularly for the eponymous Rougarou. And the Rougarou, of course, looks like a giant canine monster, a werewolf, if you will. So, how does the creature look? Well, we have to bear in mind that this is a very small, independent company. Their documentaries are usually funded on Kickstarter, so they don't have gigantic budgets. You're not going to see something akin to the Lycans from Underworld in this thing. So it's a low-budget werewolf suit that they use. But as low-budget werewolf suits go, it's not bad. It's not very expressive in the face, and it's still got human proportions, but it gets its job done. I'm a tokusatsu and kaiju fan. I can tell you I have seen far worse suits than this. I would put this one in maybe like Silver Age Ultraman somewhere, like after the early shows when the franchise actually started having money put into it and they could afford to make the suits a little bit better. That's the level of quality I would put the Rougarou suit in. It's not perfect. It's not going to fool anyone into thinking, wow, they actually went out and filmed a real werewolf, but it does what it's supposed to do. And the sequences, the found footage sequences, are pretty effective. It lends itself to the visual style, and that helps set the film apart in that sense. In terms of exploring the actual subject, it paints a very interesting picture of the Louisiana area where the Rougarou sightings occur. And we see how all these different cultures came together and this legend formed. Because that's really a huge part of this. The Rougarou is a combination of so many traditions that it practically embodies the American melting pot idea all by itself. You have influences from Irish Catholics, French Canadians, Italians, different Native American tribes, all meshing together to create these different images of what a Rougarou might be. And the general sense is that it's some sort of humanoid wolf creature, which in itself is pretty bizarre because there aren't any native wolves in that area, and yet the tradition still dates back before European settlers arrived. But they melded together in such a way that sometimes it's actually hard to extract the different parts and tell which tradition came from where. So that's a huge part of this. And through this whole exploration of the creature, you get a very interesting sense of the community and their mindsets and their past, their history. And that is a truly fascinating thing to explore in its own right. But of course, let's not forget, this is still a documentary in which people claim to have seen the Rougarou in real life. So we're not just talking about folklore. Something is going on. And having watched the documentary, I feel that the case of the Rougarou is a paradox in a way. Like I said, the beliefs around the Rougarou, the mythology, if you will, has a bunch of different influences from all over the world. And some of them mesh together in ways to form traditions that aren't even necessarily specific to different towns. They might be specific to different families. That's how many variations you might find. There are some variations where the Rougarou isn't a wolf creature, like I said. It's, in some cases, sort of a catch-all term for any bizarre creature, sort of like how the term bunyip is used down in Australia. So, if you take the folklore and you look at it literally, you realize that not all of those different aspects can possibly be true simultaneously, because they contradict each other. They can't all be describing the same kind of creature, so you could use that and say, well, it's all just mythology. But then you listen to the eyewitnesses, and they don't sound like they're lying. They sound like they have really lived through some sort of encounter with something. They're interpreting it through the paradigm in which they understand the Rougarou, but they still experienced something. So therein lies the paradox. They're having literal experiences with something that cannot literally exist. How do you resolve that? I'm not sure. I just know that I think they really are being truthful. What they experienced, that requires a far more thorough exploration of the Louisiana bayou. But I don't think they're lying. What reason would they have to lie? And especially, what reason would they have to lie about seeing something like a werewolf? In terms of the DVD itself, it's incredibly bare bones. Like, usually there's a behind-the-scenes feature included with these, but I don't think the last couple have done that, and this one certainly doesn't. There's no behind-the-scenes, there's not even a menu. It's one of those autoplay DVDs, which I didn't even think they made those anymore. Also, my particular copy at least had 3 instances towards the end where it randomly skipped, which I can't explain because the DVD itself doesn't appear to be flawed in any way or scratched or something. So I don't know if that's a problem with physical copies across the board or if I just got a special one. But I'll probably have to get in touch with them about that and see if I can get a new copy. Beyond that, though, I would say that yes, this is a documentary worth watching. It's a bit less concrete than their other documentaries, and it's not quite as ambitious as, say, the Momo documentary, but it's still a fascinating exploration of a particular region through a bit of culture that's unique to it, surely bizarre, possibly real, and yet impossible to comprehend. Again, however you perceive it, it's an interesting documentary, and if you are interested in folklore or the paranormal or dogmen or anything of the sort, then Howl of the Rougarou is worth looking at least once, maybe even more than once. Still need to see if I can get a non-flawed DVD, but that's my problem. Unless it's a problem with the DVD itself, but that remains to be seen. But anyway, just wanted to fill you guys in. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books, Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.